The ocean is the largest natural asset on the Earth's surface. For decades, the ocean has sustained life on Earth, absorbing carbon dioxide and 90% of the heat caused by human activity. However, the ocean's health is now in jeopardy. Each year, billions of pounds of trash and pollutants enter the ocean from the coastlines and far inland. Marine pollutants, plastics, rising ocean temperatures, and acidification is threatening life below water. The ocean literacy, a term coined in 2005, aimed to embed ocean science into traditional science education. Since then, the tools have moved beyond the traditional classrooms and are now aiming to encourage participation from a broader society in order to encourage ocean stewardship. Today, we're going to be shedding light on how far this traditional knowledge-centric framework has evolved and how far it needs to go in order to encourage participation and inclusivity from a broader society. We're also going to be shedding light on tools used to encourage participation and engagement, such as emotional connection, awareness, action, communication, and various other tools, and how effective they've been in driving climate action. To speak more on the matter, I'd like to warmly welcome Sundus Sohail. She is the strategy head at Marine Conservation Pakistan, an organization dedicated to restoring Pakistan's ocean through science, education, and community engagement. Sundus, welcome to Sustainability Shorts. Can you give us a brief introduction of yourself and the role Marine Conservation Pakistan is currently doing in building and delivering ocean literacy programs?
Thank you so much, Nida, for having me. And hello, everyone. My name is Sundus, and I work at the intersection of sustainability, ocean conservation, and education. I currently serve as the strategy head, as Nida mentioned, for the ocean and climate programs with Marine Conservation Pakistan. And my work usually revolves around making ocean relatable to people, especially in a country like Pakistan, where despite having a coastline, the ocean often feels invisible in everyday conversations. So at Marine Conservation Pakistan, our role in ocean literacy is to bridge that gap. We don't just share information, we try to create experiences. We engage students, local communities, we work with fishermen, we work with citizen scientists, and we are building a deeper emotional and scientific connection between people and the ocean. So because the reality is that people protect what they understand, and more importantly, if they feel connected to something. So the ocean is not distant, it's fundamental to our survival. As you mentioned, it produces half of the oxygen that we breathe, it regulates our climate, it provides food for billions of people, and is even a source of life-saving medicines. So when we are talking about ocean literacy, we are really talking about understanding a system that sustains all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. So I recently come across this notion, and it's reciprocity. And it applies very neatly when it comes to conservation work and environmental protection. And it extends beyond responsibility. And I think ocean literacy is a classic example because the ocean is a source for ecosystem services and essential life functions, and it regulates the natural climate, as we discussed. I think when we're taking so much from this natural asset, it only is necessary to replenish what we take and ensure that going forward, we sustain it back to a level so that it can continue giving to the generations that come after us. Now, moving forward to my next question, Pakistan was one of the signatories of the Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework in 2022, setting targets to conserve inland and terrestrial waters and marine and coastal areas. However, reports have been cited that Karachi alone dumps 472 million gallons of sewage, including 100 million gallons of industrial waste. Solid waste is dumped along coastal zones, degrading the marine environment. Now, when it comes to protecting the ocean, how can ocean literacy address these threatening forces?
Okay, so Nida, this is a very real and urgent issue, especially for a coastal city like Karachi, because ocean literacy plays a foundational role here. When people understand what goes down their drains, what they throw on the streets, and how industries operate eventually impacts the ocean, behavior begins to shift. And ocean literacy turns the out of sight, out of mind problem into a visible personal responsibility. And it also helps people understand that's what is at stake. The ocean is a major source of protein for millions. It supports livelihood, especially in coastal communities, and it contributes to medicine that we rely on. So when pollution damages marine ecosystem, it's not just an environmental issue. It is a food security, it is a health, it is an economic issue. And for example, when we work with fishing communities, we don't just talk about pollution, we connect it to declining fish populations, their own livelihoods, that creates ownership in them. And similarly, when young students learn about marine ecosystems and then participate in activities like beach cleanup or coral restoration, they transition from passive learners to active stewards. And I believe ocean literacy also influences policy indirectly, and aware public demands a better waste management system, improved industrial regulation, and sustainable urban planning. So while it may not immediately stop 472 million gallons of sewage, it builds the social pressure, behavioral change, and community action needed to address it in the long term.
Yeah, and I think that that's a very important way, and I think a critical way of how to instill, that awareness and that urgent need to take action is that it's affecting each and every one of us, and it's essentially bringing the ocean closer to our homes. And it just really doesn't end with the community. Even if we speak about the coastal communities that are directly exposed to the ocean, but it affects each and every one of us, as you mentioned. So now reflecting on your personal journey, I'd like to ask, what are some of the personal challenges you encountered when executing Marine Conservation Pakistan's ocean literacy programs?
Challenges. I always love talking about challenges. So I think the kind of challenges that I faced, me and my team, obviously, it's basically, I think, both structural and cultural as well. So one major barrier that has always been there is the awareness itself, because many people don't see the ocean that is something that affects them directly, especially those living slightly inland. And so engagement requires a little bit of extra effort for us. And then another challenge is the accessibility. Marine education resources, trained educators, and even safe access to coastal sites are limited. So we've also faced resistance at times, not intentional, but due to priorities. Like, for example, for fishing communities, dealing with daily economic pressure, conservation can initially feel secondary. So we have to approach it in a way that aligns with their realities. Like, for example, by showing how a healthy ocean directly supports their income, their food security, and long term stability. And then there are some financial constraints as well. Funding and continuity are also some challenges that we face time to time, because ocean literacy is not just a one time workshop. It requires sustained engagement to truly shift mindsets. And then there are policy practice gaps as well. While frameworks exist, but there is very less implementation on ground and is often inconsistent. So there's also a gap in recognizing the ocean's full value, which breaks my heart, because this is something that supports you economically, culturally, socially, and coastal communities have deep rooted relationship with the sea, and tapping into that cultural connection something that we are still working to strengthen. And but despite all of this, what keeps us going is the responses we see, especially from youth, people, and local communities, when they realize that they can also be part of the solution. So our every project is community driven, and we try to involve youth as much as possible.
So I think whatever you've outlined just right now seems like one of the greatest wins that you've achieved. And whenever one is doing this line of work, such as marine conservation, it's important to know that you are essentially working with the psychology of an entire community and sort of trying to undo adopted behaviors. And these behaviors essentially become second nature, and unwinding them, I can imagine how difficult it must be. And as you rightly said, for coastal communities, the kind of practices that they have now adopted is essentially harming the ocean. And in order to make them realize that what they are doing is harmful, it requires change. Change is hard, it's slow, and it requires constant reinforcement. Essentially, what you are doing is that you are instilling that stewardship from one generation to the next. And that is something which is long lasting. So, my next question and my final question to you is more on the futuristic side. So, going forward, how do you envision a future, an ocean literate future for Pakistan?
I'm actually very hopeful, and we are doing a lot of efforts towards ocean literacy. And when I talk about ocean literacy, I see a future where literacy regarding ocean is part of the education system and not just an optional topic, but as a core part of how we understand our environment. And I envision a more community-led conversation where fishermen, students, local residents act as citizen scientists, collecting data, restoring ecosystems, and influencing big decisions. So we are moving towards integrating technology as well, using digital tools, storytelling, and even AI to make ocean education more accessible and engaging. So our project like ocean conservation related to coral propagation and building reefs in a natural way, in an organic way, shows that Pakistan has a potential to adopt nature-based solution at scale, not just to restore ecosystem but to protect coastlines and support biodiversity. And more importantly, I see a future where people recognize ocean not just as a resource but a life supporting system, one that provides you everything: oxygen, food, medicine, climate stability, and even a cultural identity for coastal communities. So, if we continue building partnerships between organizations, communities, and policymakers, ocean literacy can actually become a powerful driver for both environment and social change in Pakistan.
I think the way you connected it all, the community, the policymakers, the stakeholders, embedding AI in storytelling, they're all powerful tools. And I'm going to repeat this again to bring the ocean closer to our daily lives. Thank you, Sundus, for joining us today. It was a pleasure having you and enlightening us all on how powerful ocean literacy can be in order for us to realize how vital the ocean is. For everyone else and my audience, stay tuned for the next episode of Sustainability Shorts. I'll see you next time.